Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Code Fusion Hub. As we all saw that in the previous lecture we had covered the topics for advanced Angular that were array functions and string functions. So if in case you missed those lecture, I'll provide the link in the description box below. Make sure you go and catch it up and ensure that you are following that smoothly. Now, in this next lecture, we are going to cover the topics about input and output decorator. Stay tuned in the video and always remember that there will be quizzes at the end of each topic to test your understanding. So don't forget to drop your answers in the comment section below. Alright, so let's dive into our lecture 5, that is input and output decorator. So, in this lecture, we'll be having a look on what is an input decorator and what is an output decorator, and how can we use both of them all together in a parent component and a child component. Okay, so let's have a look at the definition, like what an input decorator means us. Okay, input decorator is usually used to provide the input properties. Okay, so it allows the flow of data from the parent component to the child component through an input property. So let's have a practical example on how this works. So firstly, we have created two components, that is a parent component and a child component over here. Okay, so this is a parent component, and to route on the child component, we have given this path. Okay, so first of all, you need to create two components over here, and we'll move to the parent component. So now here, what I'm going to do is, first of all, we'll just remove the child component over here, and I'll take the parent component. Okay, now I'm going to take a value. Okay, suppose I am taking a value as parent value and I'm assigning that value as 0 over here. Okay, so I'll go over here and I'll just print over here parent value, and I'll interpolate the parent value that I have defined over here. So you can see the changes over here on the right hand side, that the parent value here is initialized as 0. Okay, now I want to transmit this data, okay, the parent input data, into my child component. Okay, so parent is always going to be the input provider. It acts as the provider of input data. So the parent has to give the input to their child component. Now, how would the child receive it? Okay, so let's just close this and open our child component over here. In here, we are going to take a variable. Let's name it as child value. Okay. So input decorator is always used with this. Okay. And I have imported it from Angular core over here. The syntax is at the rate, that is used to state that it is an decorator over here. And let's say I am initializing a child value, let's say over here, and by default I am giving it a value as 0, that if I don't have any value, it will always show me a value as 0 over here. Okay, so into this child component, what I'll do is take this value over here and I'll just print the child value over here. Okay, the child value would always get the input from this parent. Okay, so I'll just log the value of child value over here. When we move to the child value over here, we are getting it as 0 because initially we have set the value as 0 over here. But now what I want is that the value of the parent value, okay, should always get child. So for that, what I have to do is go into my HTML file for the parent component over here, okay, and use the selector, that is app child. Okay, So first of all, I think so we need to include that component over here also in our imports, okay, to access it. So what am I doing is I am calling the child selector over here, and into this child selector I am stating that uh, listen, I have this child value over here, and I want it, the value that I pass over here should be the parent value. Okay, into this app child, what I am saying that this app child is nothing but my child component over here. I am stating that the child value should always be the parent value. Okay, I am binding that over here. I'm binding the parent value over here in the child component as an input. So here the child component is a input receiver. So it receives the input from the parent component through this input property, that is the child value, and this property, this child value is decorated with an input decorator over here, right? So this child will always be the receiver of the input. Okay, so this is how the input decorator works over here. So the parent component initializes the parent value to 0. Okay, now this parent component binds the parent value over here to the child value property. Okay, and this child value property is binded with this input decorator. Okay, so this child component will receive the parent's value as the child value over here. Okay, so whatever the parent value would be, it would received by the child. So this is nothing but the input property where the parent is the input provider and the child receives the input over here. When should you use the input decorator in Angular? Comment down the answers in the comment section below. Pause the video. So the correct answer is to define a property that can be bound by the parent over here. Okay, so there should be a property from the parent which the child would take as an input over here. Okay, moving on to our next concept, that is output decorator. Now output decorator allows a component to emit the events. Okay, so the child would always emit the event and it would be the event output provider. It would provide the output and the parent has to listen to those output and according to that update its own value. So let's have a look at the practical example for the same. Now the child here is the input receiver. Okay, so the child receives the input from the parent component, okay, through this property that is child value over here, and this property is decorated by the decorator that is input. Now this output, okay, it will produce an output and that is emitted to the parent component by the child component. So the parent has to listen to the value that has been changed by the child component over here. So whenever, let's suppose, we'll take a scenario that we will update this value in the child component over here. So whenever we update this value from the child component, the output will be emitted over here from the child component, and the parent over there has to listen to those changes and accordingly update itself over there. Okay, so let's have a look, and suppose first of all let's create a method, let's say increment. Okay, now in this method I want that this child value, okay, should be incremented. Okay, so I'm incrementing the child value over here, and now my output property I'll bind it over here. Okay, so first of all, we'll define the output. Okay, this is going to be the output decorator, and in this, I am taking a property as value changed over here. Okay, in this, I am going to take the event that is emitted over here from Angular core. Okay, and here I am going to take the number because I know that my event is going to be a number over here. Okay, So I am giving the output as this is going to be my output that will be emitted from my child component over here. So how do we emit that? By this dot value changed, that is the event emitter, and I am saying that emit the value this dot child value. Okay, so the updated child value would get emitted over here. First of all, now I think so I have to call the increment method into my HTML. Okay, so just below this I'll suppose take a p tag. Into that I'll take a button which says increment, and on clicking on that button I want my method to get called. Okay, so we'll just have a look at the output. Okay, on incrementing I am getting the value of my incremented child. Okay, so first initially it was 0. Okay, then it uh, gets on increasing when I click on the increment button. Okay, now I am emitting a value. Okay, I am emitting the value, the updated child value over here. Now I want that this updated child value that I'm emitting should be listened by the parent component. Okay, so now what I have to do is just move to my parent component over here, and in this I have to go to my first HTML. Here I have written that I am just giving the input over here, but I want to take the input from the child component as well. I have to listen to the changes. Okay, so how do I do that? Whenever the value is changed, okay, I want to call a method, let's say handle the value changed, in which I'll always pass an event over here. Okay, so whenever the value of the child component gets changed, I want that this method to be called over here. So I'll just call this method over here, into which I'll pass an event over here. Okay, so suppose I'll take a variable over here that is new value, and I'm passing a number over here. Okay, so I am stating that whatever the value I'm getting from the child, okay, whenever it is getting changed, I have to handle that accordingly. Okay, so whenever the new value is being assigned over here, that is new value from child. Okay, I want that new value over here, and now I'll print that value into, I'm going to assign that new value into my parent. Okay, so we'll just move to our parent component over here, and now we can see that the child component is also present because we called the selector over here, in which we are having this parent value, which we have passed the parent value over here. Now whenever my child's value is changing, the output is been emitted over here, and the parent will listen to those changes. So whenever I increment, the parent value also starts getting changed, because it also receives the new value, the new updated value whenever I change it. Okay, so once again let's have a quick recap of what we did today. So first of all, the parent component initializes a property, that is the parent value, to 0. Okay. Now the parent is going to be the input provider. It provides the input data to the child component through this input property. Okay. So here the parent value is been passed into this child selector using this child value. Okay. So this child value, we have declared it over here as this will take the input from the parent component over here. So this was about how the parent would communicate with the child component. Now talking about the child component, it has received the value from the parent component through this input property using child value. Okay, now it would provide us with the output by performing some actions over on the data that it has received from the parent component. Okay, so it received some value from the parent component, it is performing some action over it, and then it is emitting the updated value over here. So that is getting caught into this event emitter. Okay, so now this event emitter, whenever updates its value, it will emit the new updated value. So whenever any change in the value occurs, this is getting updated over here. So whenever I am changing any value over here, the event emitter gets those value and provides that value over here in the event. So whenever I'll get any update in my value, then I'll call this method over here. So whenever there is a change in the value, this method has been called, which has the new value that is from the event emitter. Okay, that I got from the child component. That is the event emitted value that will be getting stored over here in this parameter. And that parameter I'm again passing it to the parent value. So whenever I increment the child component, my parent component also gets updated according to the updated value changes through the output that has been emitted using the event emitter, as the parent has to listen to all the changes that has been done by the child component over here. So the parent component listens to this event and updates its value accordingly. Okay, so this was all about input and output decorator. So let's have the last quiz of this video now. So which method is used to emit event using the output decorator? Pause the video and try to answer it by yourself and give your answer in the comment section below. So the correct answer is using emit. Okay, so using this emit event, we use the output decorator over here. So this was all about input and output decorator and the parent child communication. How does it take place over here? In case if you have any doubts or any suggestions, you can ask me in the comment section below. All the suggestions and feedbacks are appreciated. And if any suggestions, that too. And make sure if you like the video, hit the like button and share it with all your friends and colleagues. And I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Till then, subscribe to the channel and don't miss any of the video from this series, and master the Angular course as much as you can. You have to do hands-on practice over these topics to make it more perfect. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Till then, take care.